Alright, hello. So, I am starting my reread of The Lightning Thief slash Percy Jackson as a whole. A year ago-ish, I tried to go back to The Lightning Thief, and I was like, what would it be like to reread that again? And I couldn't do it for some reason. Like, it wasn't hitting right, but I also feel like it should be just as good as I remember, because I've always felt like Rick Riordan's books have been really readable and really easy to read. So I'm giving it another go, mostly because one of my best friends and I decided to start like a mini book club type thing, and the one that we decided to start on was The Lightning Thief, since Percy Jackson is going to be adapted into a new series on Disney Plus that will hopefully be much, much better than the movies, since Rick Riordan is going to be actually involved this time. But I decided that I wanted to do this little vlog style thingy where I take you through my journey, trying to reread it, seeing what happens. Basically, I want to take you with me as I'm doing this little reread. I know a lot of you probably have the same experience as I do, where you read The Lightning Thief or Percy Jackson a long time ago when you were a kid and you've not really touched them since. Hopefully this will be fun and entertaining to watch me revisit my past. I don't know, if I have anything to say, then I'll come on here and say it. Okay, but this sunset is so pretty though. This is like the perfect reading mood right now. Alright, so I've started my Percy Jackson reread, and I think one thing that I'm definitely noticing is Percy's voice. I kind of wanted to figure out what made Percy Jackson such a big success, what made the series blow up so big, and why it has shaped the childhoods of so many people, including me. And I think one big part of that is Percy's voice. Percy is really funny, very relatable. I think what really gets you to keep reading and gets you hooked is his voice and the engaging quality of like the tone and the words and the jokes and stuff like that. I also think it's interesting how both Percy Jackson and the Kane Chronicles start out with this kind of like introduction to how this is a kind of real account. So I remember the Kane Chronicles is told kind of like through the point of views of the two main characters making audio recordings of their experiences and this story. And while Percy Jackson isn't like that, it's told in a more typical format. It starts out with this kind of like, don't read this if you think you may be a half-blood. If you are reading this as if it's a fictional story, then that's great. But if this sounds a little bit too much like your life, then stop reading it. And I think as a kid, having that aspect, that small, tiny, lingering aspect of like make-believe that this is real definitely pulls you into the story. So I'm already loving so much of this. I'm especially loving Chiron and how he's pushing Percy so hard in the beginning, and Percy's like, what do you expect from me? I can't know everything. And he's like, it'll come in handy, just trust me, you have to know this stuff. It's really well written too. It's actually surprisingly well written. I'm so happy that even now it's still something that I'm loving. One thing that I do want to note though is I think it is like a little bit problematic how Rick Riordan uses ADD and dyslexia and what I can maybe assume is muscular dystrophy or other disabilities, Chiron being in a wheelchair, Grover's legs, like these are all serious issues, and I feel like it is a little bit problematic to just say, oh, all of these are masks for other, like, you know, supernatural, superhuman stuff. I think that the trend of having a disability either be the mark of a villain or the mark of superpowers can be pretty problematic, and also the fact that they aren't really shown to be disabilities, having dyslexia, having ADD, having them kind of show him as a failure, but that he was made for something completely different, where, you know, in Greek writing he doesn't have dyslexia. I feel like that's like more than a little bit problematic. And same goes with disabilities where they're just masks for having animal legs. Like, that seems discounting the experiences of people with actual disabilities to have this be like something that they're just playing pretend at. I love all the foreshadowing that's going on. Reading this for a second time definitely makes you see things in a different light. Also, something that I just remembered is the beginning scenes take place in and around the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and my aunt used to work for the Met, and during the time when the first Percy Jackson movie was being filmed, she was working there, and she interacted with some of the cast and told me about how they made all those scenes work. At the time, I was so jealous, but now I'm just like, yeah, that movie did not turn out well, so... So this is, I guess, a spoiler if you haven't read Percy Jackson or you don't know like anything at all about Percy Jackson. So when I read The Lightning Thief for the first time, obviously I didn't know that Percy was the son of Poseidon. Like, that was, I guess, a little part of the mystery, or that was like one step of the way into the story. And so I didn't pick up on some of the like small details. So first of all, he mentions that in one of his previous field trips, he accidentally pulled a lever and his whole class fell into a shark pool, and I can't help but feel like that is more than a coincidence. And then also, when he gets mad at one of his classmates, he kind of like blacks out, and then he doesn't remember what happened, but the girl says that he hit her, but the students around her are all like, did you see the water? Like, it was like it moved on its own. It's definitely some really funny foreshadowing once you know what happens. I'm sitting down to continue reading The Lightning Thief. My mom made this really delicious drink, so I'm just sitting here in the really beautiful sun. Oh my god, you can't see anything. Let me see if I can focus that better. Yeah, got a beautiful view. And doing some reading. So I just filmed my June TBR video. I'm hoping to get this vlog out before I put out my June TBR video, which will go out June 1st, so I better finish this quick. But in that video I have a little announcement about the kinds of books that I'm reading in June, and so I have to finish a bunch of books before June 1st so that will be possible. I know this sounds super vague right now, but it'll make sense once you watch my June TBR video. But yes, I have to do a lot of reading, and I wasn't able to do that much reading in the past couple of days because I had a lot of schoolwork going on. But hopefully in the next couple of days I can do a lot of reading. Also, this is my bookshelf background. This is my filming area, the chair that oh my god, wait, no, that's too messy. We're not doing that. Okay, this is the chair that I usually film in. This is my lighting for my videos. This is my makeshift tripod. But yeah, this is where I film my videos. This is what you guys see in a video. For now, I'm going to hopefully do a whole bunch of reading today, but I'll keep you updated on specifically my Percy Jackson reread, because that is the main purpose of this vlog. Also, this lighting is so... oh my god, this lighting. Ah. Okay. First I'm gonna take some selfies, and then I'm gonna do my Percy Jackson reading. Alright, bye. Alright, I've moved locations a little bit. I am reading in the light of this really big window. Yeah, I'm just chilling here, sitting, and reading Percy Jackson. Percy's voice is so funny. He's like, then the weirdest thing happened, and it's literally like his math teacher turning into a creature that we will soon discover is a fury, and then he's like, then it got even stranger, and it's like, at this point, we're way beyond weird and strange. Okay, I totally forgot how the mist worked, but like, it's so cool how basically after he kills his math teacher, Miss Dodds, then everyone just forgets who she is. And then Mr. Brunner / Chiron is like, Percy, are you okay? There's never been any Miss Dodds. And I'm like, wouldn't you know? Like, that's one part where I'm like intrigued. Is that the mist? Is that him just trying to pretend? Or like, wouldn't you make up a good enough excuse so Percy isn't super confused? Okay, I literally just needed to turn the page to figure that out. So basically he says that everybody else believes this thing, but he knew that Grover was lying to him because Grover would hesitate and then make something up or like pretend to be confused and he could tell. So I guess they're just lying to him to protect him instead of making up a good excuse, which I feel like that would be so much smarter, but whatever. As much as I hate the Percy Jackson movies, I feel like they've kind of taken over my remembering of this book, and so there's like so much more amazing detail and really cool scenes and foreshadowing that the movie just completely cuts out. One scene that I really love is when Percy finds out that he's going to be kicked out of Yancey and he's still trying to study hard for his Latin test and he still wants to impress. I'm just going to call him Mr. Brunner for now. After his test, after his final, he goes up to Mr. Brunner, but Mr. Brunner's like, "You're not normal and that's okay." And Percy obviously thinks it's about his dyslexia and ADHD and how he's a troubled kid and runs off and is really upset, and that's just so heartbreaking. This book is actually so good. I'm so glad I'm doing this reread. Another really cool scene is when Percy and Grover are on the bus back to Manhattan and they have to get out because the bus breaks down, and Percy sees the Fates, obviously through the mist, but he sees one of the Fates snipping a cord of yarn, and Grover is like so worried and he's like, "Am I going to die? Is somebody going to die?" I think especially because of the movie, I forgot how young they are and how small they are in this series and in the first book, of course. Grover's trying to protect Percy from this ominous fate, and Percy is protecting Grover from bullies, but they're both just young children, and I think that rereading it, you get to see this journey start from the beginning, because as the series goes on, obviously they grow up, and I think returning back to when they were young and just starting out makes it really special. When Sally's describing Poseidon, I really love how she's like, he was powerful but gentle too. I think that that's something that this series does really well. When you're talking about beings like the gods, I think it's really easy to make them humorous. It's hard to capture, the awe and reverence. But I think that the series does a really good job of portraying all the different facets of the gods, that they represent what they control. So for Poseidon, when you're talking about the sea, of course, the sea can be stormy, it can be violent, but it can also be gentle and calm and inviting. I think that's a really important factor of the gods, and I also think that it really strengthens and adds a lot of complexity to the story that could become a little bit too simple and childish. Again, with the book-movie differences, I feel like there's a lot more foreshadowing that goes on in the book, and so when you get to the point where things get revealed, it's not as rushed or outlandish when things happen. Like, you're getting hints and details as the book progresses. I think with the movie, you're kind of just thrown into things, and the characters are kind of just thrown into things, and that is not ideal at all, because a lot of it's just like, what is going on? What's happening? There's just a lot of confusion. Another thing is, now that I'm rereading this with a more critical mindset, especially thinking about why Percy Jackson did so well, I think the aspect of a summer camp is so cool. There are a lot of books, I think especially after Harry Potter, that are set in magical schools. The intro to Percy Jackson is set in this boarding school, and I feel like it kind of takes this trope of a magical boarding school, and it's like, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna go to a summer camp. And I just think that's super cool, because who doesn't love summer camp? Like, there's so many cool things that they do with the elements of summer camp. That's something that I definitely really like about Percy Jackson. Of course, it does play into a lot of tropes, but it subverts a lot of tropes as well. I just got to the first time Annabeth called Percy seaweed brain, and like the entire ship just came like rushing back to me. Like, this was my ship. This was my biggest ship for such a long time, and I like totally forgot everything about it, but now it's all coming back to me with those two words. Seaweed brain. Also, can we talk about the prophecies? Because when I was a kid, I like memorized every single one of the prophecies from every single book, and I thought I was so cool, and I was like, this is basically like poetry equivalent to like Shakespeare. It's really not. It's really not. But they're cool, they're fun, but they're really not what I thought they were when I was a kid. That's kind of a letdown. The chapter titles are so funny. So there's I accidentally vaporize my pre-algebra teacher. There's we get advice from a poodle. There's I ruin a perfectly good bus. I just feel like all the titles have just enough that you're like, what is happening? What is going on? But it's also funny. It's not necessarily like purely mysterious where you have no idea what's going on and you're just confused. It's more like funny, crazy, wacky, outlandish. Okay, so some spoilers in this part. If you haven't ever read The Lightning Thief or watched the Lightning Thief movie, that was really bad. And also, if you've only watched the movie, this might not make sense because this detail wasn't in the movie. But anyways, you might want to skip ahead if you don't want spoilers. So, the part where they go meet Medusa, I have some thoughts. When Percy first meets her, he portrays her as a Middle Eastern woman based on the fact that she seems to be wearing a burqa. That is a little bit problematic to me, if I'm being honest, mostly because there isn't really any Muslim or Arab representation in Percy Jackson as far as I know. They just have Percy assume that she's Muslim and therefore Middle Eastern because of her burqa, even though there are a lot of countries that are Muslim and most places in the Middle East don't have women wearing burqas. And then also, she speaks with a vaguely Middle Eastern accent, which I'm assuming is like supposedly actually a Greek accent, but then also wouldn't he know because he somehow knows Greek and his brain is hardwired for Greek. So yeah, I found that a little bit problematic. I also think that it's different if you're going to portray her as being maybe Muslim in this new age, or at least being modest, but then she's like, I need to get a better look at you guys, and then takes off her veil, and like, that's just weird. And also, I guess the biggest issue is that she was alone when they stumble upon her statue emporium, and it wouldn't make sense for her to be wearing a full burqa when she's alone. Like, that's not how modesty works. Alright, so I just finished my The Lightning Thief reread. I had such a fun time rereading this. I finished most of it in one sitting in one day, which is pretty unusual for me. Actually, that's not true. If I'm super into a book, I'm just gonna sit down and read it and pretend like I have nothing else to do because it's so good. I'm so happy I reread this and was able to immerse myself back in the world of Percy Jackson and revisit some of the memories of my childhood. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Let me know if you'd like to see more vlogs in the future and any other content you'd like me to upload. As always, I love you. Bye!